It's time now for us to take a look back at this week's headline-making stories with our Reporters Rewind. Our guest at the round table, our talk radio personality, Wuyi Jacobs. He is the executive producer of AfrobeatRadio.com. Also, Ekua Brew-Hammond. She is a style and culture writer whose work has appeared in Ebony, Parenting, and Jet magazine. And Katie Klabusich is a writer and contributor to the House Parks radio show. Welcome to all of you to the Reporters Rewind. It's good to see you. I think you've all been at this table before. Yes. So that's good. You know what to do. I want to start with a story that we did a segment on, we reported yesterday, and that is this young woman who is a Christian in Sudan who was convicted for converting to Christianity, supposedly from Islam, and she's 8 months pregnant. When you heard about this story, I see you shaking your head, Katie. What was your reaction to it?
I mean, obviously it's tragic. It's a human rights violation to convict anyone of something just for their religious beliefs. International law is pretty, there's pretty widespread agreement on that. But when you have a government that is a theocracy, those waters get murky. Like, where are our rights to condemn it? Where are our rights to intervene? Not one of those, like, should we stay out of it, whose business it is, but kind of like where international law would allow us to have a say at all, sort of maybe cry for her.
Yeah, indeed. And the truth is, Nana, it's surprising, but it's not shocking, because most conflicts around the world are rooted in religion.
I mean, it seems that way right now, but I think the sort of what's behind it all is that it's really not about religion. It's just about power. When you look at what's happening in this particular situation, it's basically a one woman's word against this, this law that's being enacted by men. She's saying that, I was raised Christian, I did not convert to Christian, therefore I'm not an, apostate. But they're saying no. And so she's in a no-win situation.
Because it's been how many years since somebody's been convicted of this, and she would be the one.
Well,
she's being singled out, and there's some reason that we don't all seem to know or really understand.
Well, part of the reason is because she's not recanting her Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah, and for those who adhere to Christian faith, that's a part of it, is
exactly.
that you don't recant it. You don't recant it. Well, I'm going to make you stand up for your gender and represent the men at the table. It seems like even in this progressive 21st century that women, particularly in many spots in the world, really are still oppressed in some appalling ways.
Well, I think it's an illusion to imagine that it's a progressive century. It is true that women are, the butt of violence all over the world, domestically, but also increasingly we're seeing political violence directed at women. So you're absolutely right about that. I think it's an outrage.
It absolutely is an outrage. I want to turn to one more topic before we have to stop our Reporters Rewind today, and that is, it seems like local news, but it's not. Of course, there is a big change in the executive editor at the New York Times. This is a world-famous paper. People read it all around the world. And the first female executive editor was abruptly fired, and then put in her place was the first African-American executive editor. And, I think it's a shame no matter how you slice it. What do you think?
The first thing that I thought when, it came out that maybe she was fired because of an income discrepancy was, I want to know how much Dean Baquet is making, because we know that, African Americans, traditionally make less than, their white counterparts. So I think the whole situation is just very interesting, and it just sets the worst tone and the worst precedent.
I think probably what is tiresome to me is we're still dealing with this old issue of parity. We're still talking about issues of parity and perception of women in leadership positions.
Right, there's been a lot said about whether she's being truthful, whether we can believe her. For me, it doesn't necessarily matter. Andy Zeitler wrote a really great piece this week, and she said that it's important for a couple of reasons I agree with. And one is that it's plausible. Whether or not it's the truth, certainly parity is still a problem. I mean, we all believe that the story could be truthful, have a truthful basis. And the idea that you could put a woman in charge of a newsroom and suddenly just have sexism vanish is, that's kind of what they're saying. We put a woman in charge, so how can you accuse us of this? That's just
Yeah, it's one of these discussions we've been talking about a long time, and I think going to be talking about for a long time. Unfortunately, Wuyi, we're going to have to stop it right there, but we'll have you back to talk about more stuff. Ekua Brew-Hammond, Katie Klabusich, Wuyi Jacobs, thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Arise America.